Well, it's a little hard to tell right now, but I would guess it'll take us at least 2 more weeks of session to get things wrapped up. You never really know how fast these bills are going to move through the process. We have a number of major bills that haven't been conferenced yet between the House and the Senate, and that process takes some time. And we hope that the governor will be involved and his staff will be involved in that process so that we get these bills in the shape that many of them can be signed by the governor. That's our objective, and how long that takes is always a guessing game. But there's quite a bit of work yet to be done, and quite a few major bills that have not gone all the way through the process, including a tax bill, an environment bill, a legacy bill, and others that we hope, the bonding bill, of course, that we hope will get through this process before we're done. So I'm more interested in getting our work done than worrying about exactly what date it happens to finish on. Well, I think the governor set the top end very high, higher than necessary. You know, you got to remember we passed a good-sized bonding bill last year. It was not a bonding year, but because of the urge to get some things done as far as making sure that people went to work, the argument was that we needed to pass a bonding bill, and we did. That was the governor's desire, and that was part of the final kind of package that got put together. It included a bonding bill, a fairly good-sized one. So there's not a need for a large bonding bill this year, in my opinion. The House is on the bottom end of the scale, although everybody's thinking that we need to do something about the Capitol. The Capitol building is falling into disrepair. My colleague Dean Erdahl on the House floor has a chunk of the Capitol that must weigh about 10 pounds that has fallen off the Capitol. If that had hit somebody, they'd be dead, frankly, if it had hit them in the head. It's urgent. And so we all agree that we need to get after repairing the Capitol. What we don't agree on is just what kind of package we should put together to do it. On the House side, we think we should put together a long-term package that funds the entire project, doesn't fund it all this year, but sets up the funding so that it's all taken care of. It's about a $220 million or so project. It's not a cheap thing. The Senate's looking at it a little differently. They want to do the most important part right off the bat and then leave the rest to be funded later in other sessions. In either case, we want to make sure that we take a look at the Capitol issue, so that affects the size of the bonding bill. And then the other parts of the bonding bill are mostly infrastructure issues, repairing the buildings on state campuses that need to be repaired, getting some money into our road and bridge projects, getting some money into the RIM program, so that we keep these ongoing bonding programs moving along.
We're looking at it. The Senate side, we have $496 million in our bonding bill. If you look at the past 10 years, or the last 5 bienniums, the average bonding bill has been just a hair over $9 million, or $900 million. And with the 500, I believe we did 502 last session. So I think at the end of the day, we'll probably be looking somewhere in that $400 million. In our bill, we have 20-some million. Basically, what in our bill is to take care of the exterior of the Capitol, to make sure that that's all correctly taken care of. Our bill, we did get into the remodeling and the revamping of the inside. We also have, I think it's around $90 million for special projects throughout the state of Minnesota. So if you take the special projects out, we'd be right in that 400 to 402 million. Add that to the 500 million last time, we'd be right at the average of the past 10 years. But like Paul said, there's a difference between the House, the Senate, and the governor, and we'll just come up with a bill that's palatable to everybody. And I think what you're going to see in a bonding bill this year is I think you're going to see it weighted very heavily to infrastructure, roads, bridges, state-owned college buildings, stuff like that, to bring them up to repair and make, get them repaired and maintained. I think that's where the majority of the emphasis is going to be at the end of the day.
Well, it wouldn't eliminate all property taxes, but we are one of the few states in the country that has a statewide business property tax. It's actually property tax dollars that go to the state coffers instead of to local coffers. As part of last year's legislation, we passed an elimination of that. That was vetoed by the governor. This year, we're passing an effort to at least reduce it a little bit this year, so we would exclude the first, I believe it's the first $150,000 in value would be excluded from that statewide property tax. And then with a long-term plan of stepping that down, not trying to eliminate it all at once, but stepping that down over a period of years to the point where we'd eventually eliminate that statewide business property tax. It's a burden on business that other states don't have. It puts us in a less competitive position. We just don't think it's a fair way to be taxing business.
We have set up on this, I have set up a hearing with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, the Senate Transportation Committee, and some folks from this side of the Highway 14 Coalition, including members of the City Hall and members of the County Board. That hearing will be held Wednesday, the first Wednesday we go back from break. That hearing is going to be held. So, trying to get that into the works so that we can get one more opportunity to sit down and discuss these issues. And we've invited folks from the City Hall, City Council, from Brown County Commissioners, and the engineer from Brown County, also some of the Cold Quarter Highway 14 Coalition folks will be coming. So that's what I'm trying to do in order to keep this on the front burner and keep it highlighted so we can get this back on. And I'm sure that we'll see how that goes, but that's what we're doing.
It's really hard to say. I've always said that we need a strong local partner to make a Vikings bill happen. And I don't think we're there yet. The city of Minneapolis has kind of stepped halfway up the ladder by presenting a letter of intent to the legislature, but it's not a real solid position at this point. Without that strong local partner, I don't see how we can get a bill passed. And then there's still a lot of questions about where the state portion of funding would be generated. It's a difficult process, and it's a very expensive stadium. $1 billion is a lot of money, and I'm not there yet. I think there's still a chance we could see a bill that would get to a vote this year, but there's also a chance that it'll get moved on down to the next year. We know the Vikings are going to play in the Metrodome at least one more year. So.
It certainly works in progress, and I think there's a lot of different funding sources still being looked at. Like Paul said, I think that we've got a ways to go. I think City of Minneapolis does have a ways to go there. They did send a letter, resolution. 7 folks signed it, 6 did not. So, it's just one over what they needed to do to have a majority. And some of those signatures are a little bit on the light side as far as what their anticipation is as to what needs to be done. So I think City of Minneapolis still has some work to come in to be that good, solid partner. We still have to look at how we're going to figure out ways to fund it. There's a lot of options on the books, and like I said earlier, at the end of the day, I do believe we'll see a stadium. But how soon this process is going to happen, I'm not sure. And I think a lot of folks feel, well, just go get it done. Well, it's not quite that simple. When you're spending $1 billion and you have a lot of different interests, you have the Vikings themselves involved, and they're putting in a big chunk of change. They're putting in, I think it's $495 million or something like that. When you have the Vikings involved, you have a city involved or a community, and then the state involved, it takes time to get all those entities together and get everything worked out. And I do believe that process will happen. But I don't think it's something you just run in and get done just to have it done. I think we need, when we come up with something, it'll be something that's going to work, it's something that's going to fit, and it's something that all parties can live with. And we're just not there today, but I believe we'll get there.
I sure know that our colleagues, Maury Lanning on the House side and Julie Rosa on the Senate side, have put a lot of time into this, working hard on it. The rest of us, frankly, for me, it's not an issue that I spend much legislative time at all on. You'd think from the media coverage that there was all we talked about at the legislature, but that's not the case. It certainly is a topic of interest, but most of my blood, sweat, and tears has gone into the other work and kind of waiting for the Vikings and Minneapolis to get together on the stadium.